Okay, here we go. Welcome to the Virgin Authors Show. We are three friends bonded by our love of writing and creating a place where authors can find community and support. Hi, I'm Lissa Reese.
And hi, I'm Jana Vandelar.
Hi, everyone. I am Mandy McGuire, and I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. Noelle Salazar was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, where she's been a Navy recruit, a medical assistant, an NFL cheerleader, and always a storyteller. When she's not writing, she can be found dodging raindrops and daydreaming of her next book. Her debut book, The Flight Girls, was a USA Today and international bestseller. Angels of the Resistance is her second novel. Today, we're going to chat about her upcoming novel, The Roaring Days of Zora Lily, releasing this October. And Noelle is the first of what we hope to be many of our successful authors who are invited back for a second time on the show to debut new releases. Congratulations on your new book and welcome back to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. I'm so honored.
We're thrilled to have you. Well, we met with you last year about your bestseller, The Flight Girls. And since then, you've been promoting your second book, Lissa, you ready? Angels of the Resistance. And now you have this amazing book launched in October.
Yes.
Days of Zora Lily. Congratulations. Like saying. Yeah, it was a fast read, guys. It's so good.
Thank you.
Loved this book.
We want to just kind of know a little bit about it. We're going to get into it a little deeper. Like I have a specific chapter. But yeah, just give us a little overview for the people that are watching this, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is a kind of a departure for me. So the first two books are World War II, and this is 1920, set in Seattle, which is not very typical of 1920s books. I feel like, oh, look at you. My glass is sort of 1920s.
Well, it's cooler in here, but it's fussy.
Oh, and it's color coordinated and everything, Jana.
Because
I mean, I feel like I need to start, because she drinks the Mary Pickford all the time. I need to like start making myself the drink, and I'm failing. But anyways, it's about a young woman that she lives in poverty with her family. I mean, she dreams of being a seamstress, and just kind of her journey of life in just this time period, this amazing time period that I've always been so intrigued by. So it was really fun to kind of dive in and research my city and just so much. There's just so many details that were so fun to be like digging into and figuring out what to add. But yeah, it's just a young woman's journey. I feel like that's kind of my niche. I just love to women or create these women that are just determined and persevering despite the odds.
Yeah,
very cool. We loved it. All of us.
We all fell in love with your main
fall in
character.
love with the first chapter, and then it segues into like the past, which is awesome. Not to give anything more away, but both, you just fall immediately. You write characters so well, and you just like fall in love with them. And you're like, so.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I actually want to start with your process of birthing this book, if you will. So how did launching this book differ from your previous ones? I know you've got your same agent, so you didn't have to do a query process. God bless you.
God bless you.
I don't miss it. I hope I never have to do it.
But so what was this journey like? Did your agent already have the publisher, or did they buy a multi-book deal from you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So book deals are so weird. My first two books were just single book deals, and this one I really wanted a 2-book deal. I just wanted that comfort. And so normally what happens when you're with a publisher, after you've sold your first book, they usually have an option of accepting or denying your next book in the same genre. So they did that with Angels. And then, so for this one, I came up with this idea, and then I was so panicked that they wouldn't want it because it was 1920, that wasn't World War II, that I came up also with a World War II story. And so I had both of these ideas that I had completely fleshed out and wrote outlines for, and wrote 3 chapters for each, a synopsis for each, which synopsis writing is the worst thing in the
Yeah,
world.
that's almost
Worst.
Yeah.
Worst.
And I was so sure that they were going to want the World War II one and not even this one. But I was trying to like, can we sell them the World War II and then maybe they'll take the 1920s? And so I'm like, I'm positive they're going to take the World War II book over this one. And so, because that one has more of, I feel like, the same kind of hook like Fight Girls and Angels has, where it's really,
Continuity. Yeah.
it's inspired by maybe not necessarily a person, but a group of people. So,
Yeah.
and this is really more, Zora's more like my imagination. So I had kind of put Zora aside and like I had done all the stuff, but I'm like, they're not going to go for it. So I really started getting deep into the research for this other idea. And then they wanted this one first, but they did do a 2-book deal, which my agent was kind of like, you know, but I was like, I want the comfort of just knowing there will be that.
Yeah.
Because I'd never had that. I'd only had the single book deals, and I don't know. There's a comfort there of knowing that there's.
It's that dream. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but so you sell it with the 3 chapters and the synopsis?
Yeah. So when you, again, like when you are with a publisher already and they have this option, you get to just pitch an idea. So, and it's different for every, you know, I have friends that basically they pitch an idea and that's it. And then I'm friends with Kate Quinn, and she has shown me her proposals, like what she sends to her agent and editor, which is just beyond. So I actually, for the next book I'm pitching, I used that outline and like minimized it because I'm like, wow, she is so like in depth. I bow down. But yeah, so you do a proposal, which is basically a pitch, and then some sample chapters. That's how my editor prefers to do things. And they, you know, take or don't take the story based on that.
But they don't try to say, well, yes, we like this, but could you like not write exactly what you said you were going to write and do this instead? You know what I mean?
Not that experience, but I do have friends that have had experiences like that. Or I like this part of it, but this doesn't work for me. Or what if you do this instead? And so, I mean, that's the nice thing about having a publisher, is that a lot of times, or, you know, an editor, is that they will try and work with you, because if you've had a good experience and you've sold some books, like they want to work with you again. So they're going to try and help find the story. So, you know, if you have an editor already that you've worked with a lot of times,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, they'll tell you if
It
it's
works
not
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, like you mentioned, your main character is a seamstress who dreams of becoming a designer. So without giving away too much of your story and how much you want to share, but that theme of her being a seamstress and designing goes through the whole book in multiple different opportunities that she has. So can you talk about that work, like how you thought of that? Are you a seamstress? And talk about those designs. Yeah, the clothes. Talk about the clothes.
I mean, please talk about the clothes. I was born in the wrong decade.
Oh my gosh. I told my agent, like, I was like, I want to write a book for each decade of the 1900s so that I can just dress for my launch parties in some of those clothes.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Right? And I feel like, so my launch event is not like fancy by any means, and I'm probably going to be the only one dressed up. I'm going to tell, like, can you put it out there? Like, come dressed up if you want, because I want to dress up. You know, what other options?
Should.
My
corner from the date, so why not? I am not a seamstress. There are a couple women in my family that are seamstresses. I honestly cannot tell you why I decided to make her a seamstress, except that I have a love of old Hollywood, and you know, the gowns you see at like the Met Gala or the Oscars. And I've always kind of wondered, like, what happens to those? Like, I know that they get stored, but also, I don't know if you've ever watched The Home Edit, but those women that go into homes and okay, they went into Reese Witherspoon's home, and she had the really blonde costumes like in her house. And I'm like, okay, well, put them in the closet. Okay.
The little pink
Yeah,
outfit.
Chihuahua bag, and yeah, no.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've just always loved those costumes. There's, Debbie Reynolds and Singing in the Rain. I would die to see those costumes in person. There's just so many iconic costumes and gowns that I feel like bring me back, and I have like a physical whatever to them. They evoke something in me, and it seemed like a job that she could have and do on a very small scale, but have a really big dream about. And and in between, everything in between, so it is a career that could just be this, bringing in some side money, or, having a steady job, or it could be this massive major thing. And so I just thought, like, I don't know what her journey is. I know what she wants. It was very similar to Audrey in The Flight Girls, where she had this dream. It wasn't a huge dream, but it was like a solid dream. And it wasn't like, Zora's is more common than Audrey's of owning an airfield, but it just seemed to make sense for the time period. And also, at that time, clothing was really changing for women. And so
that, we don't really mend our clothing anymore. We're such a disposable society. And I mean,
my husband's got a hole in his pocket right now, and it's like, well, good luck with that.
Even wealthy women were having their clothing repaired.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And like it would be reused, and as for other clothing or blankets or whatever. But so I think there's this fascination with the time period, which also drew me in. Like, what can I do with the clothes? I want to, I want to know about the clothes and the materials. What was available back then? What was even, what did they even have back then? It's not the same as what we have now.
Oh my God, I looked it up. When you said the elastic, I was like, elastic? Did they have elastic 100 years ago?
You did.
It was like, oh, the details, like how much do I want to like really get into all of it?
Yeah.
And trying to be like, what was common? What could I make uncommon that would be her thing? And it was a lot. And I just also find it really intriguing. Like that time period, not just the people, but the clothing, of how they went from very structured to then letting loose the clothes and the people. And then you get into the 30s and everything became very buttoned down again, the people and the clothing. I just find it very interesting how, it all looked and felt. And
that is interesting.
And you brought it to life really well. And I think
you brought it right to us.
There's the glamour, but also the social issues and the pain of that, and the poverty and the lack of a social fallback that we have these days with programs. So I know it was your city, which probably made it a little bit easier. You've got some really great stuff in Seattle, but it's not like you could just go to Seattle in the 1920s. It's completely different from researching a place. So how did you find this stuff out, the fabrics and all that?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about my research process and what is it? Like, I don't know. I always start with this very simple, like the very simple Google searches, which I'm sure like everybody does, but Seattle 1920s. And I just start there with this very broad, what is Seattle 1920s? But it becomes, you've got your notebook out, like the writer's notebook that becomes many notebooks. And it's every possible detail you can find in that very broad Seattle 1920s, to what structures, what buildings were there, what I was looking at, like counties and, where they were, where the lines, street names.
Were your neighborhoods there yet?
It's absolutely, what clubs existed, who were the club owners, what were the neighborhoods, where are the lines on the neighborhoods, and then
you did that transportation too. That was a big deal.
Electricity, who has what,
outdoor plumbing too. That was like a lot of poverty. I was like, God, that's right. Probably not.
And just like her, like in her little neighborhood, and then going into Seattle where there's lights, and oh my God, that must have looked like and felt like. So I mean, you know, and then I got into the fabrics because you can't just throw any old fabric. And they're like, do they have satin? Do they have silk? What is it? I don't know. So yeah, and then, you know, it's Art Deco and geometric designs. And I was shocked to find like there was, you know, backless dresses, and there were some shocking moments where I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, that's so racy. It was really a racy time. And so it was kind of exciting and fun to find that out.
Oh,
That's
prohibition
fun.
and all
Oh
that.
gosh, yeah. And just
Yes.
like finding out the different ways they got alcohol in, and the players in that.
Yeah, I love how you made that one of the main players. That was really fun.
Well, and it was fun to learn about. I mean, actually, one of our policemen, Roy Olmsted, who was very famous. He was this cop who was well known and respected as a police officer, and then he was also one of the most successful bootleggers for 4 years. You know, and then his wife.
It is, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, we all really loved the book. Like we dove right into it. It grabbed us from the beginning. And what I just loved is the music came to life, the clothing came to life, you know, the prohibition. And when she would go into town, like you were just talking about, it was really vivid. And so can you talk about your research and, you know, how you went about researching for maybe authors who don't write historical fiction? Because in every book, there's some element of research. If it's just about a cup of coffee that is in the story, or if they, you know, do they have a book, or do they have a newspaper or an iPad, right? Depending on your story. So do you have any tips for authors maybe who don't write historical fiction on research?
I mean, I think I would say, again, like I start very broad. Like where are we? Let's just start where we are. And like, I know my character going in, I know what they're going to do, and I know where they're going to be. But then I'm like, okay, well, this was Seattle. And yeah, I wasn't in 1920s Seattle. So I had to go back to these maps and find out like how big or small Seattle was. And Seattle was pretty small. Like it had been decimated in a fire in 1889. So they had to rebuild it, and they built on top of the Seattle that was there. And you can actually do underground tours and see like.
I have, it's fun.
Yeah. And so, but so what was the city? What were the boundaries of the city? What was around the city? Because I like want to get you in the city. And then again, like the streets and the clubs, like what were the clubs? Like, I want to know the real club names. I want to know their owners. What do they look like? And maybe I don't necessarily get a picture of that particular club, but I can look at all kinds of, you know, speakeasies through history and kind of pick and choose. And I think the most important part of writing historical fiction, or if you're going to add like real fact to a story, is to make choices. I think if you just throw in everything, I think it pulls away from the story, and you're trying to serve the character and the story. And so you really have to pick and choose and like create this setting. I mean, there's so many details I add that I probably did a deep dive on, and you don't get any of that. You just get like this vase, right? But I made sure that vase would have existed, you know, to make sure that, you know, it's pretty accurate, because it's fiction, but you're trying to be as accurate as possible. You're trying to paint an accurate picture of a time.
And you've got real life people in there. Besides your policemen, you have real actresses. And it's funny because I looked up to see if that designer was a real designer, right? She wasn't. But you it's so realistic and easy to believe, and fits with all the, you know, imagining that I have about that time period, that any of it could have been.
I mean, I appreciate that. I did, like, it was really fun and intriguing to research the speakeasies and the clubs and the culture that was happening in the clubs, because it was different depending on who owned the club. You know, if it was a white owned club, if you were BIPOC and you were, you know, part of the entertainment, you could be on the stage and you could be backstage, but you couldn't mingle. But if it was like an Asian or Black owned club, it was like a free for all. So it was, you know, very friendly. And so that was interesting. I didn't know that, you know, I just thought, because when we watch movies from that time period or other books I've read, it doesn't mention that. It just seems like everybody's mingling in, you know, finding these women dressed like men and men dressed like women, and Zora's kind of like surprised by, seeing this and just accepting it. And this, it is actually a pretty personal story for me, because Zora Lily is the name of my great-great-grandmother. And our beginnings are in a logging camp in Ballard. So for me, like, the whole thing was just sort of born from this, like, I didn't even know my great-great-grandmother's mother's name was Zora Lily. I didn't find that out till like 5 years ago. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, she didn't look. For one, like, why has nobody had this, like, nobody passed the name down, which is crazy to me. They came down, her and her husband, from Canada, and they settled in Seattle, and they lived in a logging camp with their 8 children. And they were very poor, and made a decent life for themselves. And so it was fun for me to like really kind of showcase Seattle's humble beginnings and Zora's humble beginnings. I feel like Seattle's actually like a character in the book. And so it's really special.
It comes to life on its own. I was hoping, because I'm a virgin historical romance, and do not get me into another genre, but but I was hoping we'd say, as my virginal point of view, that you had like a little editor that would go and fact check everything for you, instead of you having, it sounds like you did all of it on your own. So I guess there's no little magic fairy that does all that for you to double check.
It's hard because you want to be authentic, and I not only am I online, but you end up coming across books, and so I'm ordering books left and right. There was one book I badly wanted to get my hands on, and the only place I could find it was on eBay for like $50 or something, but I had to have it. And this was very early on in my research, and because I wanted to know about this musician, Oscar Holden, which I put in the book. He was like the jazz daddy of the time in Seattle. And so I really, really wanted him in my story, but I wanted to know his history. And again, like, he's such a small character in it, but I know his history, and that's what matters. When you're writing these kinds of stories, like, you as the author need to know this stuff, but what you choose to put in it, like, you can't put everything in it. Or if I told all of Oscar Holden's life in there, like, we'd forget Zora. So,
it's a different book.
She's not going to go downtown to these clubs and not see him. So we got to put him in there.
Yeah, no, you tie it all in so beautifully. And I got so mesmerized in chapter 4, and I'm just because it was about the makeup of the time, which, I mean, I've heard of this. I've heard the dresses in the clubs personally, but I'm old, but the makeup, I just was like, I was blown away. And I thought, how that research alone, I can't even comprehend, because I mean, mascara back then, I mean, I just was putting on my little, Revlon mascara one.
I know. Imagine.
And it was so cool. And then the rouge on the knees, I was fascinated. I'm like, wow.
I'm like,
that was sexy back then.
Like, rolling stockings under your knees. Like,
under your knees.
It was racy, you guys, to show your legs.
I know, right? It's so funny. And actually, my daughter was doing a science project last year, and she was doing, I can't remember what exactly. I think it was just like facts of makeup, but like, mascara goes back hundreds of years, and people used to go far and stuff. And so, yeah, it was interesting, like, just the makeup. I mean, it was interesting when I researched it for the 1940s, even, just because it's come so far, and just like the ingredients, they were great.
Right. I mean, it's so cool, you guys. Everybody has to read this, but there's a romance with what appears to be the perfect man for Zora, but at the core of the story is basically the young woman discovering her passion and path in life, which you were saying earlier, that you just love kind of going that direction, I think. So I guess that's pretty much it's almost like your nature, I think, right now. I mean, I can hardly wait for your future ones, but so how much of Zora, like, when I write, I know mine kind of, it's like becomes its own world. And is that kind of what happens with you, or did you have the perfect, like, everything pretty well spelled out from the beginning, like, about who Zora was? I mean, it's so cool about your grandmother or great grandmother.
Great grandmother.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. This is the first book I really did my homework and outlined.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
all the way through.
Yeah.
But then, you always, I mean, I always detour.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's surprises. There's a moment when Harley shows up at the gate and I was like, I didn't know you were going to be there. What are you doing there? I was not planning for this. And then, you just let them take you wherever they're going to go.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. And I feel like if that didn't happen, I'd be writing the most boring book.
Mhm.
Yeah, I try and I've been trying to be better at outlining, but I'm really not that great at it. And then
Don't worry about it, girl. You've got a system. I don't know.
well, I think, you feel it too. You know what you read stories, you watch stories, you know how a story flows, you know how to get from A to B, So there's definitely a flow and a feel of it. There's definitely times where you get to the middle too, where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just like paddling in place. Like I'm not going anywhere. This is going absolutely nowhere. And it's moments like those where I'm just like, just keep writing, just write the crappiest words you can possibly write. Just keep going. Cause you always can go back and edit. And I have to like remind myself of that in those moments. Cause otherwise I would probably quit. Cause it's really frustrating when you get there. And I always know where I'm going because I don't start a book until I know how it ends. If I don't know how it ends, I can't start it because I'm just like,
Yeah.
I have no direction. And the funny thing about
Because you have to go from A to B. You have to know where you're going.
I need to know where I'm going. I mean, I know there
Yeah.
are people that just start and maybe they don't care,
Yeah.
but I need to know.
Yeah.
I don't need to know like how they're getting there, but I really need to know where they're going. But the funny thing with Zora was there was no present day element.
I love that too. That's interesting.
Me
Yeah.
too. And it was actually my fabulous editor's idea. She was like, hey, what if you added this element? And I was like, I don't know. And we're on this call with my agent, just sort of discussing the whole book. And then she says something. I don't remember what she said. And I was like, got it. It was just, I just wanted to bookend it. I wanted a very a League of Their Own ending. So
Yeah.
I hope you felt that, walking through.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just wanted.
And it was perfect, Noelle. And it was so satisfying because I had to stop myself with like 30 pages left because I thought I don't want to race
did.
the ending, late at night when I should have gone to sleep an hour ago. So I saved the last 30 pages and I was worried because I was waiting for something to happen. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me it might not happen. And then was I going to be satisfied? And so coming back to that bookend, I just thought it was brilliant. And it was very, very satisfying in a way I wasn't expecting. But
Me
listen,
too.
we are out of time.
Oh no, how do we do that?
It always happens.
Yeah.
It's the first one on with 3
We need a
times.
longer show.
I know.
Well, so you can find all 3 of Noelle's books. Well, you can find 2 of Noelle's books wherever books are sold right now. And the 3rd one is available for pre-order and will be out in October. And Noelle, do you want to tell us about any upcoming launch events where they can come and meet you and maybe get an autograph?
Yes, I would love to. So if you're in the Seattle area, I will be at the University Bookstore in Seattle on October 4th, which is a Wednesday night. I believe it's 6. You can find it all on my website, noellesalazar.com. On October 5th, I'll be on Bainbridge Island at Eagle Harbor Books. And then the following week, I'm going to be down in California. So we've got a San Diego and a La Jolla event, and we're setting up an LA event, and there might be some more. So take a look at my website. I'll be
and hang on, can I just put in a plug for Noelle? If you're coming to the event, feel free to dress up in your 1920.
Please dress up. I don't want to dress up. I don't want to be the only one. I'll be the only one. It's fine, but.
Well, please join us on our next show. In just 1 week from today, we're going to be meeting with the best-selling author, Debbie Mason. She's the author of Summer on Sunshine Bay. We're going to be meeting at 7 p.m. next week, and we're going to talk a little bit about pen names as well. So you can watch the Virgin Authors here on Facebook Live on the 3rd Thursday of every month, and you can watch all of our past episodes on our website at virginauthors.com or on our YouTube channel. We're so happy to have Noelle here. Thank you so much for coming back to us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me again. I'm honored to come back.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.